What's up, Chris? How's it going?
All right.
Obviously,
Hey.
not the best weekend in terms of results, but overall, just I think it's these kinds of weekends are interesting because you feel like we were in the match,
Yep.
and then it kind of slipped out of out of our fingers, right? So, just curious, like overall, like your take on the weekend, and just like we knew C9 was going to be a tough match, especially during the group stage. Historically, they've been extremely tough opponents for everyone, but what was your
Yep.
take, just overall?
Yeah. I obviously the second week of GG's with EG, I was hoping would be a little bit more positive, but yeah, I like if I had to go into the week, like we only play so many matches, and like this was one of the ones that I thought was probably a coin flip of like, look, I wouldn't be surprised if we lost. I think the next two, this one, like obviously the C9 match, the G2 match, the Sentinels match, are all like the ones where like you hope you win at least one, if not two of those three. I think would be a good result for us. So tough one. I because like watching it and rewatching it, like I feel like we had chances. It wasn't like we got blown out. Um, I thought we played fairly well. Obviously we go into Lotus, right? The first map. We just played really well with Derek on chamber. We see a change. Tejo comes back in, kind of surprised there. Um, I like I'm not. I think I mentioned this last time. I'm not a great Valorant player, but like now that I've been like watching like the games more as like less of like just a fan and enjoying it, and more as like, hey, like let's like maybe look at this match, see what happens. I find myself watching the mini map more
Yeah.
than than I ever have in the past, and I wonder like from your point of view, is that like when you're a former, you played at a very high level, you've coached at the highest of highs, like how do you watch a Valorant match? Like, are you just watching like everything are you just watching the main screen, or are you like actually watching a game within a game somehow? Because I was listening to Valen and like the things he was picking up, I was like he's got to be watching the mini map, or he has the view of every other player, because there's no way like this guy. He was like, it was really cool to listen to him on the commentary. But I was wondering how you watched the match.
Yeah. So first of all, funny story first about Valen. So obviously we had like this meeting in Toronto. He was obviously playing in Toronto, and in on the way back home, I had like fallen asleep waiting for my gate or waiting for my flight. And it's not like I was gonna miss my flight. There was a long time left, but Valen suddenly appeared in front of me when I woke back up.
What?
And for a second, because we've obviously interacted, here and there in the past, but for this is the first time I was seeing him in person, maybe after a long time. I don't even know if I saw him in the past, but if it wasn't, it was in passing. But anyway, I wake up from my nap and I see Val in front of me. I'm like, is that Valen? And then he's also thinking like, is that Valens? Because that's my alias too. So it was this funny moment. Obviously, we talked to each other and caught up a little bit, but at the time he was sad because G2 had not done as well as he had hoped. But
Yeah.
obviously, G2 is back doing well even with the stand-in. So good for him. And you're right, his commentary definitely gives so much more detail than I think you would get. And I think what happens, whether or not he is looking at the minimap or has like the overview of different observer views, I think probably where we can relate is we're expecting certain things to happen based on what we see in scrims or what we've
Okay.
been experiencing. So it's almost like in his mind, he's kind of confirmation checking. Like if like, okay, this is what our team would do. Is that what EG does? Is that what C9 is doing? So
Yeah.
he's much more quick to point it out if those things get confirmed, right? And I think that's kind of how I watch as well. It's kind of like, okay, like they have site control. Are they gonna start planning before we advance, or are they gonna plan and fall back and play kind of the retake more passively? Those kinds of things are like, definitely watching a lot of the minimap. I think I turn the volume down just barely enough so I can hear the commentary if I want to, especially if you have like a commentator that's giving deep insight like Valent. But in
Yeah.
general, it's more about watching the mini map for sure. And then of course you gotta tune into the center of your screen for the clutches, obviously.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah. I thought like Lotus, like a map we've been pretty confident on. Everyone was talking about the Viper walls kind of messing us up a little bit on C.
Yep.
I actually thought like watching it more so like what were we potentially like where were we missing? I felt like we had a lot of ults that did nothing for us.
Yep.
A lot of Raze ults we popped. We didn't even get we three Raze ults. I think we got one kill out of the three. There was one where we had an eco, or there was a brawl at A at the bomb site. Ye pops his ult when it's like, and like, I think if he gets a kill there and stays alive, like we win that round, but then he dies and then everyone else falls apart. Like we just couldn't get it. And like we were going for big gains on these ults, and then like we would get these advantages, and then they had hero plays like Vic. I mean, like the amount
Oh
of like
yeah.
3v1, 4v1, like 4Ks coming out of some of the C9 guys, they were just frying in that first round or first half of the map.
Yeah, I mean, credit to C9 too, right? Like they are the ones that are clicking the heads when it comes to
Yep.
making these duels go in their favor. I agree, and like I think like generally, I think what I noticed was in Lotus, whether or not we were getting space or not, it mattered more against C9 is if we got space by getting a kill. And if you didn't, it's almost like, well, C9 was holding on to their util for either the post plant if they were attack or the retake if they were defense. Anyway, so it's almost like they were baiting us into using more util, more ults up front. And they clearly had a plan for like, okay, you hear the ult, back up. Like no one, I'm seeing this one round as clearly in my head where we took over A because we did the fade ult, cleared out the site. It's at A. I was at A, I believe. So confirmed they're playing retake. We kill all, we destroy all the Vice util that they had deployed. Then we get in the site, and then we pop the Raze ult. And there's no, I mean, if you look at the minimap at that point, like talking about looking at the minimap, they all backed up on the C9 side. And they had a lot of util left. So I think that was kind of like a theme for sure. And I don't know if that is affected much by if we had Chamber versus Tejo, but one thing for sure that got affected there is technically we had to play a little bit more, I would say, for the sites on our defense because we didn't have like a Senti, right? We didn't have a comp that had a Sentinel. So traditionally, I mean, it's not like Chamber, even in the first week, we didn't necessarily use Chamber as like a Sentinel who like solo site as like the main go-to. But in theory, because I know I've seen this commentary in the public discourse where it's like you definitely need a Sentinel, otherwise you're not going to be able to play for sites as effectively because you can't rely on solo site hits, solo site defenses, right? And that part is true for sure. But I think even more than that, digging deeper into that discourse, I think really it's because C9 effectively baited us into using our util and our ults and abilities. And we didn't really have much left for the retake. So we were trying to take these duels on the retake, and they're loving. That's what they wanted. So it's a good game plan by them for sure. They changed up their pace quite a bit too. They were playing a lot slower in week one. They got railed on.
Yeah, was 2G going to be like the prep work for C9, and then they came back with something different.
Definitely something different. And I think initially it definitely threw us off, and then we looked like we tried to adjust, but then we weren't getting the kills. So that combination makes it very difficult. I think we had pretty poor defense halves on both maps as well. So let's talk about. I mean, one round to me that I think it reminded me. It was on Lotus. Sorry, it was still map 1, but round 18. We used 3 ults to your point. We used 3 ults. It was the same round that we were talking about earlier about Fade. We cleared A using her ult, and then we popped the Raze ult. But afterwards, we also popped the Viper ult in the pit, right? And so 3 ults, we lose that round. Reset economy.
That was an eco round for us too, right? Like I think we bought a little bit on the eco. We had like stingers or something, right? And so 10-7. Maybe you take it, like then we get some cash and we can maybe turn, get a few rounds going and get it back to overtime. But that was probably the nail in the coffin.
For first map for sure. And I think probably when we watch that back in review, it feels a lot easier to fix if you watch it back and like you're looking at all the different perspectives. I mean, no one even commented on this, but like Ye was like lurking mid or towards B on that round as Clove, and there were probably plays he could have made. He'll watch that back, and there are plays in his mind that's like, maybe I should have been a little bit more aggressive on that lurk instead of falling back. Or maybe when the pit or when the Viper ult got activated by Supa, maybe I shouldn't have taken that battle solo right before that retake materialized, right? So there's when players watch these things back, they take away, way more than potentially someone who's watching just from the broadcaster perspective can take away. And I think that part of it, definitely we're going to learn going forward.
Yeah. I'm sure there's like so many little nuances of things like, I could have done this, or seeing things like we mentioned that should have been expected, or like, oh, maybe next time we can pull this one off. So
Yeah.
tough one on losing our own map. So, let's go to Haven, right? Like, how do you, as a coach, like, obviously you're not Potter, but like you've coached teams, like you lose your map pick, you go into map 2, which isn't your pick, right? Like, how is that like is that something that's like hard mentally to get over, or like are you like, it's like, hey, on to the next, like we just, we'll get them on this one, like what's like the mentality, in the like the 15-minute locker room break before they go back out? Like,
Great.
what do you think, like, like
Yeah.
how would you do it as a coach?
Great question. I think there's two answers. One is, if leading up to the match, if you thought that the team that you're playing against would have left your best map in, right, on paper, Lotus is a really good map for us. Maybe C9, maybe we expected C9 to not leave it in, right? Maybe we ban. So there's definitely that, it starts from the prep. And if as a coach you feel like your read on the prep is not how it panned out in the vetoes or whatever, I think that affects you more than being in the moment in the match in between maps and resetting. I think that's easier because like you have to build up that skill set of like, okay, like whatever happened in map 1, even if you had won, right? Whatever happened, like that's behind us. Take whatever, if there was a little bit issues in our comms or anything that could apply to the next map, we definitely, discuss quickly. But for the most part, it's like, forget about it, reset, it's map 2. Focus on this. But definitely as a coach, I remember thinking when vetoes, or, when the whole process of getting if something in prep didn't pan out and it didn't make sense to me, why, that part would bother me for sure later on, especially like looking back. And, I mean, I think historically C9 is the type of team where I believe Imi is the head coach there. I think his style and vetoes have been kind of like they ban more to their weaknesses, not to the opponent's strengths. So it's definitely like a mind game, because what if that day he didn't want to approach it that way, right? So who knows? Like you can never 100% predict that, but I do think like the prep affecting the game and the vetoes affects you more as a coach than you're in the match, in the moment. You can reset. You have to reset.
Okay, cool. Love that. Thank you. So Haven, I mean, like, honestly, like, pretty good start.
Yeah.
We looked like the team we should be. We're hitting our shots.
Yep.
Making plays in that first half. So like I guess like we kind of look at the second half of this one, right, where we won the pistol. Awesome.
9-4, right? At that point.
Yep. 9-4. We won the pistol. And then the train goes off the track. So like, I guess like, help me understand that. Like, obviously we lose, we lose the second round, what should be like our win after the pistol, or normally is, right? Like, and then we just keep going and losing. I think we try to force buy. We lose again. Like, was our economy just shot after that, and like it didn't even really matter, or like was it just we got outplayed?
It's been round 14. So the round you're talking about, 9-4, round 14, it sucks in two different ways. One, we bought out. Like we knew like we wanted to like really press on here. Like we're gonna put kind of as much pressure as possible. Let's buy out. So we fully bought out. Obviously C9 forced back into it. And I remember watching that run, and I was thinking like, what basically ended up happening, I don't know if you remember, but it was towards, obviously C9 ended up getting spotted towards A by a Sova drone. So Derek uses drone, and he someone got spotted, but only one person on C9 got spotted. I think it was Mitch. That is probably the guy who mostly does get spotted around the map. So it's not really a big deal if Mitch gets spotted, right? Or I think he was playing Sky, if I remember correctly. But either way, the point is like, okay, so we started to rotate over. We had 3 towards A, and the part that I think we made a mistake on was probably deciding to move into our second portion of our setup too late. Because probably what happened is Nature's on A site with EA, if I remember correctly, and probably Nature's calling out, okay, this is how we're adjusting. We saw one towards A, no info towards B or C yet. Let's play for A. Makes sense, right? C9 ended up going A. So that read was right. But what happens in these situations is the IGL is probably calling for that next setup, next movement into the setup. And if we can't move into that setup in time, we can get caught out in between. And that's exactly what happened. C9 started to exec into A. We're in between moving from back of sight to, short A, basically. And, one person's blind. We get separated. I think Derek is stuck back sight. A lot of the trades that are happening. EA was boosted, gets one. All those things were happening. It's like so clear in my head right now because I remember watching, I'm like, that sucks because the read was right, but getting from the read to executing on that read, that time frame, I think it was like 10 to 12 seconds later. And that's a lifetime when it comes to a round, right?
Yeah.
So I think looking back again in review, it's an easy fix because you're like, okay, read was good, but Derek is too far away. Let's not act on that read. Or maybe Derek is close enough. So let us actually follow into that. So I think next time we probably will be more towards, let's say, passive, or if we're in position, let's go do that quicker. But man, you're right. That started this pinball effect of you lose round 14. It's only 9-5, not a big deal, right? But then it keeps trickling down. Our money gets reset. And of course, all this back and forth, I think we lose, seven rounds in a row at that point. And more than that, but we lost 7 rounds in a row to the point where it was 11-9, round 21. And we were in that 5v3, which ends up in a 4v1, which is really the nail in the coffin, right? So let's talk about that. Round. Let's talk about round 21. I'm sure you remember watching that. Vic, isn't that one before, right? Like, what's your take on that situation, man? I need to know.
I mean, yeah, you can't fault them because, like, at that point, you're like, okay, like, you can never, like, take a play off, but, like, that's one of the ones where it's probably like, okay, like, we should have this one in the bag, right? And, like, I know, like, one, maybe 2 of the guys, like, start, like, almost like bunny hopping onto site from, from, like, the short C, like, area there by the garage, I guess. And so, like both, and, like, there's just sound wise, probably just gives them away. And then it's Ring Around the Rosie, right? I think, Ring Around the Rosie, and we can't diffuse on that one because, like, he messes her. He plays it so well, if I recall, right? Is that?
100%. I wanna. You probably sense this theme with me is I try to backtrack from where, because everyone thinks about the 1v4. Vic coming up huge. Credit to him, obviously, for pulling out that kind of quick decision making on the fly. I mean, that part is really good job to Vic, right? But let's backtrack. We're in the 5v3, right? That round we were in the 5v3, and this is something that's so hard to judge because we can't hear the comms right now. Obviously, we'll get the comms later, but right after the game or while you're watching the game, we don't know the comms, and we see Icy challenge into short C he dropped down garage and then from the window, and he looked towards C. Meanwhile, the 2 C9 players were walking down to clear garage, and he gave up that kill. So still we're okay, right? It's that 5v3 now becomes a 4v3, and we immediately trade Net, who was outside of a garage too. So we're still in a great spot. The thing is I wonder those kinds of situations, if I asked Icy, like, hey, like, you made this play, there was no reason to, why'd you do it? I'm sure we would hear something like, well, in the comms, it made it seem like C was right now it was weak for C9 for some reason, and let me take advantage of that, right? Because I saw there was some, Icy was getting some hate on like, why'd you make that play? Why are you looking for a reclear right there? You're up numbers. I really think in those situations that, first of all, if you were wrong in review, fine. You admit it, you realize it was a bad play, but I'm very curious if it was comms related. If it was like, we spotted Net, we know he's not with the team, let's go take advantage of that towards C. Is that what happened? I don't know. But, that's where I think we have to start the review and not so much in the 1v4 that we lost, because that is as simple as next time, whoever is the last up short C, like you were saying, jiggle. Like, don't give up that kill. Like, just like jiggle, jiggle the side of the site and be annoying rather than give up the kill. And I'm sure whoever that person was next time will not make that mistake. So, the 1v4 is not as dissectable as how we got into that situation to begin with.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, it's great way to think about the breakdown, because, like, from a like the layman's perspective of Valorant, you're going to look at that 1v4 and be like, But it's like
EG's throwing, right?
Points,
Whatever.
right.
Right.
But you got to think about the points leading up to it. So I love that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, overall, tough loss. I'm sure like there'll be a lot of good learnings. We didn't look. We like at the end of the day, we didn't look totally outclassed, which is good. That's not where we want to be.
Yeah.
But we have some big matches coming up. But before we get into what's coming, next week, this was our first game in the Howling Abyss, I think they call it.
Yep.
Which is like, players facing off against each other in that small room. Obviously way different from main stage, or what I'll call main stage at Riot Arena. Like, how does that, like, as a player, it's not the same, right? And you're used to routine, and like you're probably used to like getting psyched, amped up, ready to go. You do the intros, you go out on stage, like it's a whole thing, and you've been doing it for 2 or 3 years. You're used to all that. Now you come into this scenario, it's a totally different way to get prepped. Like the game starts totally differently, right? There's no crowd. Like you're facing your opponent like across a glass now.
Yep.
Like how does that change? Like how does a team does a team get affected by that? And like, do you change the way you prep or get ready for a match so that you can be ready for in that same situation? Because like I feel like the way it's set up, it almost feels like you're scrimming instead of like actually being in a match. And does that change? Like, is that tough for some players to get into the zone, I guess?
This is a topic that it's like a can of worms in a way, but I love this topic because really what it boils down to is like the ultimate equalizer for any game is there's going to be one winner, one loser, which means if you're the winner in this circumstance, then the losers should have also been able to overcome whatever circumstance you're under, right? First of all, I think that needs to be the high level mentality. And I know that's the high level mentality across our team, but it should be because it's like whether we won or lost, playing not on the main stage, look, like there was a winner, which means it's possible to win and it's possible to put all that aside and still, show up. So given that's our high level mentality, the second step below that is like, okay, well, when uncertainty happens or occurs, you don't exactly know how you're going to feel once you're on the stage, this new stage. You're looking to your left and right. There's no curve. You're sitting in a straight line this time. It all just looks and feels different. So individually, as different players, they definitely take that piece of it differently, for sure, as every human being would, right? So I think building up that resiliency to uncertainty or things that don't play out the way you expect it to play out, as an esports professional, you need to build up that resiliency no matter what. And for sure, it definitely, I'm sure, bothered some of our players. But now you have that extra rep, whether we won or lost. In this case, we lost, but definitely not because we were playing in Howling Abyss versus the main stage. And as a player, you have to also be honest to your coaching staff and yourself, too. If it did affect you, then let's work through it. And then we will, to your point, maybe including in our preparation and our practice setup, we may even make the setup a little bit more similar to that, right? It was like, it looked, at least to the observer, to the spectator, like super dark in there. And like, it was kind of like, the glow of the monitors. So maybe we play with the lights dim. It sounds funny. But my point is like this kind of stuff, for sure. Yeah. Those few different percentage points or fraction of percentage points when it comes to performance, if someone says that was an issue, we definitely would address that. Yeah.
Love that. Yeah, I think like, it's one of those things where it's practice how you play in a way for some of those. And if we need to, we can do it. But so before we move on to like kind of where we stand, like, do you think, well, is it just like regular season group stage C9 versus playoff C9? Because like, or is it the meta difference? Like, what do you think was like the big difference maker in this game versus when we played them in playoffs? Or is it just like, hey, this is just the way that things happen, that's why you play the game?
Honestly, I think we played better individually in playoffs in stage 1 against C9. Also, I think they played worse individually. So that compound effect, we're better, they're worse. It almost felt like, even though I think we won 2-1 in playoffs, I can't remember, but it felt like we were in control from a comps perspective, listening back, and also just like how the team looked. It felt like we were in control. I think that loss of control feeling was more apparent this weekend, and the main reason I think is because when you're not feeling as comfortable individually for whatever reason, right? Then you're still trying to force the matter, like we discussed, in terms of getting space, but then C9 is not giving up kills. But when they do see you, it seems like they have an edge. That combined effect, I was really happy, actually. We took that break between map 1 and map 2 and showed up in map 2 really strongly, right? And I think that was a great indication, in my opinion, of like, okay, we can reset. We can come back from having a poor individual performance and still bring it in map 2 and try to win as a team. And we were honestly nearly there. So from that perspective, I think the focus probably in terms of an ego check will be like, okay, we lost in Lotus. All right.
Yep.
We lost Lotus here. A lot of people are saying it's because we didn't have a Sentinel. A lot of people are saying, okay, why didn't you have Chamber? You know, Derek performed so amazingly on Chamber. Why did you switch? So those are all great points of, data points. But also there's obviously a reason we picked Tejo, a combination of how things were going in scrims, but also overall like the plan around, okay, how would we take advantage of Tejo? Did it pan out this time? No. So learn from that. We will learn from that. But I do love, honestly, I love the commentary around matches. That's what keeps the hype of regular season, just like overall as esports professionals. I think that's great. I love the fans talk about it. I love talent talking about it. It was great to hear Valen on the mic as well. So overall, I think we just come back stronger. We learn from this. Definitely, we played worse than when we played against them in stage 1 playoffs. But given that we played worse, we still were in the running, right? So that's a slight positivity we can take from this weekend. Definitely the dub, it drowns out any other negativities at all. But hopefully next weekend.
Yeah, and speaking of next week, it's G2. So obviously somebody who we've had our number at the end, or we almost had their number, but then they got it at the end of playoffs of stage 1. They're back. They have Baby Bay in, and they looked much better in week 2. So for me, looking at this match, like we've talked about, because we play so few, everyone's a must win. But like because of where they're at, 1-1, we're 1-1. Sentinels 2-0, Cloud9 2-0 already. Like this one feels like if you're gonna win, if you're gonna get only one of 3 against Sentinels, Cloud9, and G2, like this is the one you really need. And then we obviously will end with Sentinels and Fury. And so like, how do you? So one, we talked about the team. Yeah, I think the team learned a lot from the playoff match. But like, so I'm not too concerned about them being able to get up for the match, right? And like not be thinking about the heartbreak. But like, how do you potentially go in and prep for a team that plays, plays a very professional, like well-defined, disciplined system, but like now as a new player, right? You've seen 2 matches of that player. Like, how as a coach would you prep for that?
Yeah, this is the ultimate question this week, and hopefully, Valen, if you hear this back, you ignore this next part that I'm about to say. I think one thing that G2 is both their strength and their weakness is that their playstyle, whether they have 1 stand-in, 2 stand-ins, or 0 stand-ins, it does boil back down to the fundamentals of like who are their aggressive players, who are their playmakers, who are their clutch players, and just that part of it actually hasn't changed too much. Because if you think about it, Leaf is like this high-skilled player, but is he always aggressive? He can definitely be aggressive, but you also have Jaw. So they're split up on that aggressiveness, right? And guess what? Yep. They still have Jaw. So the thing is like we will most likely, obviously, I'm not going to divulge exactly our prep here. No matter, Valid, if you're listening, no, but I think for sure we will take into account like what is going to stay the same. The meta has also changed since we've played them, since they've played, even since Toronto. Yeah. The meta is shifting all the time. So
brand new map too.
Yeah, brand new maps in the mix here. We're also playing pretty much all 7 maps. I mean, that's something that's not a secret because of our latest vetoes. But to us, we're trying to play all the maps, and that's going to help us. It's going to also hurt a team with the stand-in. They're going to focus probably on like 3 to 4 core maps to get Baby Bay up to speed, because stand-in or not, they don't want to get shut out. They don't want to look bad. They don't want to lose, right? So I think we have enough to latch onto that we still will prep in a similar way because we have their different play styles in mind. And I think we're going to do a great job. I mean, to be honest, I think this match will tell me a lot about how our team takes into account uncertainty. And then when the time comes, you have to show up in the match. How do you show up? How do you adjust on the fly? And every single rep, every single round that you get under your belt in that kind of uncertain scenario is something that you'll, hopefully take for the rest of your career as a player. So I think we just got more reps for that this match against C9. So I'm excited to see how we bounce back. And that's what we're known for, right? We're known for bouncing back when we're down. When we beat Crew at the end of stage 1 and made that run into playoffs. Look, this is what Potter is known for. This is what our team is known for. And now we kind of just have to do the same thing we've always been doing. Let's not overextend our prep. Let's not, take it less seriously because it's a stand-in. We're just going to do our thing, and we're going to get the dub.
Yep, I love that. Our ragtag group of misfits, as esports Doug called us the other day on maybe the beginning of stage 2. That underdog mentality. I think, like, obviously everyone Plat Chat was a full on prediction. Everybody picked G2 to beat us. I think if you pull the fans, probably the same way. But
yep,
that's the position I think we like to be in. We've been in since we came into VCT, right? And so excited to see what Potter and the team cook up this week, facing off against G2.
Yeah, and shout out to at least, we didn't get the dub this weekend, but our office buddies Lev did. So yep. Shout out to them. At least the office track record every week so far is we're getting dubs. So, next week, I think both teams will get the dubs. That's what we're rooting for, obviously, but definitely happy to see Com succeed this weekend.
Same. Yeah. Love seeing Com get some fine success, continue to do so. I'm happy for that, and excited that he's going to be, maybe we'll see them in playoffs.
Yeah.
So
it'd be great to see anyone it almost seems like there's a storyline no matter what. I think that's what right now VCT America is so fun to tune in every weekend, Howling Abyss or Main Stage or whatever in between. Like, there seems to be some kind of storyline between each team. And definitely there's one with Ja coming up this weekend. So let's get it done.
Yeah.
And good luck to you, Ja, obviously, too.
Yes, good luck to him if he's watching. Well, Soham, appreciate it. It's been another fun episode, and looking forward to coming back next week, hopefully with another dub under our belt.
I know you'll be smiling either way, Chris, but maybe not on the weekend if we lose, but definitely on Monday and Tuesday or whatever it is, right? We chat next. So great to see you again, Chris. Hope you guys all have a great weekend. We'll see you next week for another episode of GG's with EG.